land off the Longshore.
Before we start, I'd just like to declare I am the board councillor and I have a lot of contacts with those people around this particular designation, including Mr. Police.
That'll be nice.
Okay, thank you. This is a full application for the erection of 254 dwellings with public open space, drainage, landscaping, parking and other ancillary work. It's accessed off the Longshore. The site currently forms part of an agricultural use which is adjacent to the Bellway's Phase 1, which is in the blue part there, the Davidsons, which is on the bottom, and the proposed residential development granted for Cresswells, which is through there. And obviously the existing houses along the Longshore. The proposal is for a mixture of detached, semi-detached and terraced houses. As you can see before you are the key issues that we need to consider as part of this application. The site is shown in the emerging borough plan for residential development. As members will know, there is a demonstrable need for housing and there is still not a deliverable 5-year supply. The site will provide a mix of 40 affordable units comprising 1, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses and 2 2-bedroom bungalows. The affordables are in groups dotted around the scheme. Many are in small blocks, but this is the preferred method for housing associations. The site is considered reasonably sustainable with proximity to schools, services and bus links. Therefore, it is considered the principle of development, housing need and provision of affordable houses weighs in favour of the application. The site has been assessed under the SHLA, the Strategic Housing Land Assessment, as suitable and deliverable for development. The area is designated as countryside, but the National Planning Policy Framework, the NPPF, considers the policy is out of date where a 5-year supply cannot be demonstrated. Therefore, the fact that the land is designated as countryside can no longer be a consideration. The NPPF requires agricultural land to be sequentially tested. The land is classed as mainly as moderate quality with a small amount as being good. However, this only holds limited weight when measured against the wider benefits of the application. In terms of the landscape character, the emerging plan evidence base identified the land as having capacity for residential development. It is therefore considered that the site is appropriate in terms of land designation and character, especially bearing in mind the adjacent housing and the fact that the hedges are to be largely retained and indeed enhanced, which can be conditioned if approved. The proposed new development utilises the existing junction created for Phase 1 Bellways. The county highways have no objections and consider that the junction cannot accommodate the traffic if it is widened and receives traffic signals. They also conclude that the impact of the proposal to the local highway will be minimal. The developer has agreed contributions for upgrades to Eastborough Way and St Nicholas Park Drive junctions. There is a cycle lane within the site across the open space which joins onto Phase 1. Whilst parks have requested contributions for a cycle network along the Longshore, there is no current project, so therefore contributions cannot be requested under developer contributions. In conclusion, in terms of highway safety and impact, the proposal is considered acceptable. In terms of flooding, the site is in flood zone 1, which is the least likely to flood. The proposal will provide small cellular storage tanks dotted around the site and some larger attenuation tanks in the open space. That's the open space just about there, that's part of the phase. It's too large a site to actually put onto one drawing to see clearly. The Environment Agency, Severn Trent Water and County Flood Team have no objections subject to conditions. Therefore, in terms of flood and drainage, the application can be made acceptable. The ecological appraisal has shown that the site has fairly low ecological value. Other than in a few areas where there are to be roads, the hedgerows are to be retained and upgraded. Whilst parks have objected, their concerns can be overcome by conditions such as the provision of a nature conservation plan and the provision of burden back boxes. Therefore, with mitigation, the slight ecological impact can be made acceptable. There are 4 instances across the site where the residential design guide is not met. However, where the distance standards are not adhered to, there are mitigating circumstances that would make it unreasonable to refuse the application on this basis. For instance, there are views across public space, or views beyond buildings, or windows can be conditioned to be obscure. There are 25 house types and further variation between the plots. The proposal includes architectural detailing, including arch windows, headers, brick detailing, chimney, porches and detailing to the eaves. The corner plots are largely 2.5 stories and provide landmarks around the site. In conclusion, it is considered the design is acceptable. Environmental Health have no issues with the proposal in terms of air quality, and the submitted ground conditions desk study indicates that there's not likely to be any ground contamination. However, in the event contamination is found, this can be dealt by condition. The submitted noise assessment indicates that the main noise is from traffic on the long chute, and the report shows that noise can be mitigated by the use of certain windows, glazing and vents, and the appropriate British standards can be achieved for both the houses and the gardens. Therefore, in terms of air quality, contamination and noise, the application is considered acceptable. Warwickshire County Council Archaeology are happy with the application subject to a standing condition. Therefore, it's considered that the application is acceptable in terms of contamination, air quality, noise and potential archaeology. You might just about be able to see the contributions there, a table of the contributions that have been considered and the ones that we can actually take forward that are actually community infrastructure levy compliant. And this will be included within the legal agreement. In conclusion, the site is sustainable and deliverable, and any impact to residential properties, highways and the environment can be mitigated by condition. It is therefore recommended that the proposal is approved subject to the conditions and legal agreement as set out on your agenda.
First speaker, Councillor Craig.
Actually, I've got a point of order first, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Let me know what it is.
Yeah, it's just about the minutes. You very kindly corrected them that there was an error in there. But unfortunately, we proceeded on the basis of what had actually happened, which wasn't a withdrawal. It was actually just a deferment. Now, anyone reading those minutes would have expected as a withdrawal, and I know that was put in there in error, they would have expected the next time this came before the planning committee that it would have been on the weekly list, or they would have been notified in some other way. If it hadn't been in the press, I might not have known, other people might not have known it was coming back to this, because they read the minutes and said, oh, right, well, it's been withdrawn, and on that basis, we'll be notified if it's coming back. Because it wasn't actually withdrawn, it was just deferred, you didn't need to put it on the weekly list again. All I'm saying is if an error is made on this application or future ones, nobody's perfect, these things happen, but the council should proceed on the basis that that error was made, people were expecting to see it back on the weekly list. We'll, as a matter of course, put it back on the weekly list. Have I made that?
I understand what you're saying.
Great, thank you.
Your 3 minutes is going to start when you do.
3 minutes, I'll take it now.
3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm objecting as ward councillor on public safety grounds. Last year I was involved with a disaster recovery planning project for St Nicholas and Weddington. And this experience highlighted to me that public safety risks are often underestimated, and opportunities to mitigate against these risks can sometimes be missed. I think before I get down into the detail of the actual public safety objections I've got, it would be worthwhile, particularly for members of the public, just to put all this in context and remind ourselves why we're here. Well, we're here for a very simple reason. The council does not have a proper borough plan in place. Proper borough plans detail appropriate developments and suitable areas with the infrastructure and safety issues addressed. We don't have that. We've heard about something called the National Planning Policy Framework. That's supposed to be a bit of a backstop. It indicates to councils without borough plans that you shouldn't be building on greenfield sites, on precious farmland and countryside, unless it's the absolute last option. But of course, that doesn't apply if you don't have a 5-year housing pipeline. And unfortunately, our council has made sure we don't have one because they recently massively increased the target for housing in the borough from 7,000 and odd to nearly 10,000. And so we've got no chance of hitting the 5-year plan. So there is no protection for residents that are in targeted areas. So,
Councillor Travis. Councillor Lloyd.
Yeah, you're right, Chair. I'm sitting here on the planning committee, and all the councillors are stood, he's addressing the public. Is he addressing us as a planning committee, or is he trying to prove a point to the public? All I want to know, who is he talking to? Because all he's done is address and tell them about our policy. Is he talking to us, for us to make a decision, or is he just making a point to the public? I don't mind which way he does. He has the right to do it in 3 minutes, but I'd just like to know where he's talking.
Yeah, I think you were pretty right there. He's got his 3 minutes. He can speak to whoever he wants.
Thank you very much, Chair.
I think we can all hear what he's saying, although it seems to be addressed to the audience. Councillor Travis.
okay, so, forgive me about that. The microphones aren't working, so I need to look around the room as I'm speaking to make sure I'm heard. So, given the context is that one area of planning in the borough is in complete disarray, is it reasonable to assume that other peripheral areas, like making sure public safety, have been adequately sorted out and taken care of? Well, I would suggest not. We've already heard tonight about the A47, the increasingly busy A47, a major road there, and this very substantial and complicated junction that's having to be put in there as mitigation to allow for the Bellway 2 development. You only need to think about all the commercial traffic going up there. The tankers, petrol tankers, ones carrying oil, flammable liquids, gas, toxic substances. You only need to imagine an accident happening at that junction, at that new junction on an increasingly busy trunk road, to know that that one road in and out of the estate would be blocked. There would be no way for emergency vehicles to get into that estate, an estate that's going to have over 1,000 people living there. One small road, no other emergency access in, any incident as I've outlined happening there at that junction, which is perfectly possible, would stop emergency vehicles getting through. Now, officers may say the road isn't a particularly narrow one and a police car might be able to get round a parked car on the curbside. But any kind of still fire accident as a result of that kind of incident, or even a police incident at the end of the junction, would stop emergency vehicles from safely getting in and from residents getting out. Now, this is a greenfield site. This is a blank page. And it seems amazing to me that the developer has not put in some kind of mitigation.
Are there any points of clarification? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, Councillor, it's just a point that all your indications are that public health, well, public safety on the roads, you've addressed me to us, and you're expecting the committee to take notice of it, which we will do, but really it's Warwickshire County Council that are in charge of the highways from a planning aspect point of view. Would you agree with that?
I can just clarify on that very briefly, Chair, to say I have spoken to County Highways and the improvements to the junction have been done with the traffic flow modelling, and they do now just about meet that model and the objection's been withdrawn. What I'm saying is, and we're not talking, my point isn't about the flow of traffic up the A47. My point is, if there was to be an accident at that junction, there is no way for emergency vehicles to get in and reach 1,000 people in that isolated estate. There is no other access, not even a temporary track, not even the emergency vehicle track that other similar kind of developments I understand have. And the developer hasn't even proposed that. In fact, I think the officers will confirm the developer's been very reluctant and kind of dragged into finally doing just enough to get through the traffic measures.
I think you've answered the...
Sorry.
Any other points of clarification? Questions? No? Councillor Connor.
Thank you very much, Chair and Committee. many points I want to make. I'll take about 10 hours if I went through them all. But a couple key ones are, we've approved about 1,200 homes in Wellington St Nicholas area. Last year we built 220 homes in the whole of the borough. So effectively, we could be taking, if we built every single home in the borough in this particular area, 6 years to finish off all the homes. So this application is fairly premature in terms of supplying housing, because we've got 4 developments already on the go. This is one of 2 applications that are in at the moment. So we are overrun with new housing in the area. So any approval of this application will purely mean that other applications will build slower. There is not enough money in Wellington St Nick's to buy 1,200 homes in 5 years. Yeah, we're building 100 a year is a more realistic figure, so we have about 10 years housing supply in Wellington St Nick's. The design of this application has only got one access point, and very importantly, there has been no schools proposed for this area. So anyone wanting to take their children to school has to drive through these traffic lights, down to the long chute, round the roundabout, into St Nicholas Park on St Nicholas Park Drive, and up to Milby or across to St Nicholas School. The road systems would be helped massively if we actually had a primary school at the time we build 1,200 houses. By building all the houses and not even getting as far on the planning as thinking schools, particularly primary schools, we're generating a traffic nightmare. And we're also not building a cycle lane out the back end of this. There is the opportunity, with just a small piece of grass to cross, of having a cycle lane out onto Pallet Drive, out of the back of the development, cutting out a massive mile-long loop to get onto the sort of central St Nicholas Park estate. So we need to actually not approve this yet. It's too early. We haven't got the schools. And in the details, if you were minded to approve it, please do something about the details. The existing Bellway site causes horrendous levels of dust because it's a long site, lorries are racing along it, and also we need to get the junctions right, because actually a lot of traffic lights will hold people up. There's 1,000 people living on this site, all coming out on those traffic lights. Yeah, we need to think about where we want traffic lights, where we want roundabouts, and actually to have a proper plan, because this Bellway isn't the end of the matter. There's a whole load more things coming down the pipeline. And if the roads are only just coping with the Bellways after a lot of mitigation, yeah, we're just making a mess. You're looking through the development. If you look where they're going to build more houses possibly, there isn't a clear road through. The whole thing's a hodgepodge, and it doesn't join in with the Davison's development, which would have at least given this site a second access. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any points of clarification? Mr. Watts. Mr. Watts?
I don't think he was coming through.
Okay. No, Mr. Watts. Richard Peace.
Yeah. Good evening. I live and work at Poplars Farm, which is opposite the proposed junction. And it's been in my family since 1950. I'm a 3rd generation to have worked it. We've always been a progressive business and have always moved with the times. I believe that the proposed road junction will not only damage our business, but also limit any expansion in the future. But today it's about the damage to our current business. We have a farm shop which has been running for 65 years and is accessed through our archway entrance, which is in very close proximity to the proposed traffic lights. Cars coming from the Nuneaton direction will have to cross both the filter lane and the Nuneaton bound traffic. And if more than a couple of cars are waiting in the filter lane, it will block the entrance to our shop and also cause a tailback which might block the entrance to Bellway estate, causing a stalemate situation. I believe we as a long-standing business and an employer of local people, we should have been at least consulted. At present, the shop when open attracts an average of 400 vehicle movements in a day. That is 200 in and 200 out. And that is just the shop. Our second entrance is outside of the filter lane and is our farm entrance, which is used by articulated lorries and tractor-based transport, equating to 300 lorry movements in a year and around 500 tractor and trailer movements in and out. There is also a physiotherapy practice on site, which has 30 vehicle movements a day. In conclusion, I believe this junction camp could be dangerous for our customers turning in, or if not, would be enough to put people off using our shop and damage our long-standing business. This junction was only meant to service the original development of 120 homes, and for that it is adequate. But I believe that 350 homes using this access is too many for our existing business to operate alongside, and I repeat my disappointment in not being consulted. I also have an independent highways report, which I will read the conclusion of. Traffic associated with the farm and the farm shop waiting to turn right into my client's premises will hold up the through traffic in close proximity to the signalised junction, obstructing the flow to traffic, having a detrimental effect on the junction capacity. This puts doubt on the capacity calculations used to support this planning application. The access to the farm should have been modelled as part of the traffic signal junction in order to assess the impact, if any, on the working of the proposed traffic signals. No decision on the application can be safely made without taking into account traffic movements from Poppers Farm and the farm shop. And I've got a copy for each of you if anybody wants the independent report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any points of clarification? Councillor Foster.
Can I just ask if you've seen any evidence of traffic problems from traffic coming from both directions?
I've only observed it the once, but I think this traffic lights will make this worse. What happened was there was a removals lorry coming Nuneaton down from the A5, turning right into Bellway. And it stopped previously at the Davidson estate, but then realised it was the wrong place and carried on moving up and had a tail back behind it. And at exactly the same moment, we had a grain lorry turning in. And that had come very slowly from the Nuneaton direction, coming up towards us and turning left in. And they arrived near on the same moment. And neither of the lorry drivers were willing, not knowing the area very well, to carry on because they weren't sure where they could turn around. And it ended up in a stalemate situation for at least 10 minutes, by which point the traffic was backed up past the Acorn Tug that way and up back to the A5 the other direction.
Okay, thank you. I was... No, Councillor Hickley.
Yeah, thank you. Just very quickly, you read out there the independent traffic report. I was wondering what the source of that was, whether it's voluntary commissioned or whether it's something...
It's something we commissioned, but would you like to hand out copies?
Essentially the source of it.
Right, so his name's R. Leonard, he's an engineer in Suffolk.
Okay, I just wanted to make a point because I was slightly concerned when you said that you weren't consulted. Because I actually noticed on our neighbours notified, Poppers Farm is listed as being notified.
Oh, notified, you notified me, but we weren't consulted by the highways.
It would be part of this consultation. And because as well as Andy just confirmed it, there would have been site notices around. Well, okay, thank you. Catherine Benson.
Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. The application which is before you today is for 254 homes and represents the second phase of residential development by Bellway Homes in this area. Members approved the first phase under reserve matters in 2014 and construction on that site is well underway. The proposed site forms part of a much wider strategic housing allocation that this council is supporting through its review of the local plan. This allocation is the largest allocation outside of the urban area and will be necessary to meet long-term housing needs. This application site provides 25% affordable housing and is therefore policy compliant in that respect and will deliver therefore 63 affordable dwellings. As has been said already this evening, the Borough Council are unable to demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing land, and this application does deliver economic, social and environmental benefits, which are positive aspects to be considered in the overall planning balance. And Bellway Homes have also agreed in full the Section 106 obligations as detailed within your report. The access strategy for Phase 2 of this scheme was discussed with the County Council at a very early stage, with county officers indicating that they wish to limit the number of new access points onto the long shoot. We have therefore, as you've heard, utilised the existing approved Phase 1 junction and through this application improved and provided a signal controlled junction that will serve the first 2 phases. The layout of the junction is agreed with the County Council and has followed extensive discussions looking at various options and detailed traffic modelling using forecasting figures provided by the County Council, and the junction has been shown to operate within capacity. The junction has also been shown to operate within capacity under a range of sensitivity tests required by the County Council, taking into account existing approved developments in the area. The internal layout for our Phase 2 development also includes roads that extend to the scheme boundaries and could therefore be extended to deliver greater connections onto the existing land as part of the wider development in the future. The main route through the development has also been designed to accommodate bus movements, which has also been discussed and approved by Stagecoach, and the existing cycle route, for example, linking to Pallet Drive, can be used as an emergency access as well, plus there is a footpath from the site sitting alongside the access onto the long chute, which can also serve as an emergency access. In respect of open space, the proposals provide for open space on site. This is integral to the scheme. We do note the comments that have been raised by the parks officers, and obviously we note your officers' comments in terms of the SIL compliance of those. I would therefore encourage members to consider the proposals positively, take account of your commitment to the draft allocation in the emerging plan that identifies this site for future residential development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then points of clarification. Councillor Kangare.
Thank you, Chair. Mrs. Smith, Ms. Gore.
Oh, no, Bentham. That was the previous.
Ms. Wilmot. Yes.
Bentham. Don't worry.
The presentation said, and you reinforced that it's going to be 25% affordable housing.
Yes.
But in the presentation, the officer said that it will be built in a way that is directed by the housing association.
Yes.
The Borough Council has always asked that social housing be potted around sites to give that blend and merge with rather than stand out.
Yes.
Are you going to be, would you be kind enough to assure me that you will look at the Borough Council policy rather than the housing association policy?
Just to clarify, on this application, unlike the previous application, this is actually a full application, so all the details of each and every property, including the location of every affordable housing, is already on the plans in front of the council. Generally when authorities talk about pepper potting, that, I think as we said in the presentation, also sits alongside the guidance from the housing associations, because the housing associations are the people that will take on and manage the affordable housing. They don't like, and it's generally supported by officers, they don't like individual properties dotted around, because they have to manage them. There are shared parking areas, etc. as well. So they tend to group them in clusters, sometimes up to sort of 10 or 12, and that's how affordable housing is usually delivered. So it's usually delivered in small clusters rather than individual properties, and that's what we're proposing here. It's a clustering approach.
Chair, please. Can I get clarification then from the councillor, from the officer, Chair?
Well, you can do that when we...
Okay.
This is points of clarification from the speaker.
Okay.
Councillor Foster, did you indicate to...
I did, Chair. I'd like to ask what the usage of this land was before the developer acquired the rights to the development of the land.
It's agricultural land.
It was in use as agriculture.
Yeah.
Are there any other points of clarification? Councillor Bob.
Yeah. When you say there's emergency access along the proposed cycle routes,
Yes.
how would that work? Because most cycle routes, because of the abuse of them with antisocial behaviour, i.e. motorcycles, it generally put barriers in the way.
It depends on how they work. Certainly on the point of view that I've done, when there's the potential for them to serve as an emergency access as well, they will often use drop bollards. The emergency services will have a key, and certainly that's what's happened on quite a few schemes that I've done in Warwickshire, is that rather than having barriers, it's drop bollards, so that vehicles can still access it, but driving a car or something like that, then you can't really get through.
I'd have to contradict you there, because I know it's a policy of Warwickshire Fire Rescue Service not to carry keys.
Yes. Councillor Bonner, it's the points of clarification. Yeah, speaking up.
Well, I want to know how the keys would work. I stand corrected.
Councillor Moore is also, and he might be able to expand further on that point as well.
You can ask the county officer how we get to the debate. Any other points of clarification? No, okay, thank you. Anything you need to come back on, Jackie, at this stage?
No.
Okay then, to enable debate to take place, can I move the recommendation as printed? Is that seconded?
Yes.
Any member? Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I'd like to bring in Warwickshire County Council Highways who raised some questions. Ben, this of course was the Bellway one was the very first development which came up on the Long Street many moons ago, and Bellway 2 was part of that original plan with the separate entrance. In the meantime, we have approved an awful lot of things along there, approaching with ones in the pipeline over 1,000 properties. Could I just ask, in view of the fact that the traffic movements where certainly it increases the traffic movements onto the Hinkley Road, so I think the Hinkley Road is actually worse than the Long Street itself. I'll let you answer that. We have certainly seen since the development started, partly because of the building work, I guess, but we've seen backup of traffic from the town really right the way to the Eastwood Way roundabout in the morning. Could you just say how the traffic flows are now? Those traffic flows were around 1,000 per hour in each direction already. Can you say where it is and what the limits are of those roads to take those sort of roads in traffic?
It's a big question. That's a very tricky question. We've got large amounts of folders and files and pieces of paper. I can't really provide you with the actual number of vehicles that the boats can accommodate. Yes, you are right, the number of trips along the Long Shoot and to a certain degree the Hinkley Road have increased because of just natural traffic growth, and that is factored into our assessments when we do future year assessments in terms of the impact of developments on the operation of the highway network and junctions. And we've also heard from Mr Bentham that the County Council has been very thorough in terms of our assessments and requested further sensitivity testing. That's because the initial assessments didn't consider the Calendar Farm site, Sordens, as well, and the County Council, because we understand it's a very sensitive network, not only just the Long Shoot, Eastborough Way and the Hinkley Road, that sort of area together out to the A5 is very sensitive, and a slight change can have a very big impact. So through the sensitivity test we've identified a series of measures which will help mitigate that traffic impact across the network. Now, the way we're doing it, obviously, the Long Shoot junction is one of those, and the initial scheme that we had didn't provide enough capacity, so we've had to work with the developer to deliver this proposal in terms of an access range which works and provides enough residual capacity to accommodate that future traffic growth as well, which you've been speaking about. We've also looked at Eastborough Way, which the roundabout and St Nicholas Park Junction in connection have issues basically and can't operate. If St Nicholas Park Drive has an issue, it impacts on Eastborough Way. If Eastborough Way has an issue, it impacts upon St Nicholas Park Drive. Those two junctions together, the county has a proposal, and as part of this development we've also secured some money to implement that improvement alongside the Calendar Farm site, who also provided Section 106 money for that junction. Moving down to Eastborough Way and into Nuneaton, we start to get to the round where it's just a little bit too far away from the primary impact. So a development will have a primary impact, and that's the first set of junctions which it will impact. So that's the Long Shoot, Eastborough Way, the A5 junction. As we move away, the secondary impact, and whether we can argue the mitigations required on those junctions. I know you said queues observed back to Eastborough Way, but at the moment the modelling that's been done is not demonstrating that's a consistent issue. It's not a consistent issue on the network. The network does operate okay in that area, in the area of PM peaks, and that's one of the recommendations of the County Council modellers who have audited all the work that's been done by read through what the transport consultant for Populous Farm has provided, and I understand it's a delicate balancing act in terms of making sure the network works efficiently and safely, but also doesn't have a detrimental impact upon residents and local businesses. At the moment, you've got a continuous flow of traffic moving along the long chute, and the access at the moment rely on priority junction arrangements where people just edge out and have to wait for a gap. The benefit of having a signalised junction in place is that it provides breaks in that traffic flow through the way it operates, and it will provide intergreen periods, which is where the two, necessarily not all the arms, move straight away, and that will provide a certain number of seconds gap, which will enable traffic to exit out of Populous Farm and other driveways along the long chute. So it's about controlling the traffic and trying to break up that continuous flow and maintaining an average flow, controlling the traffic flow along the long chute in a manageable way. That means it operates efficiently and safely, rather than just having, if we just gone with no signals and no priority T junction, Populous Farm would not be benefiting, neither would the Bellway developments, and that's why the county have moved to get this solution, basically.
Okay, finally, before
Councillor, could you address questions through the chair, please? Otherwise, we're just going to have conversations across the chair.
No, Chair. I have three questions.
Well, you didn't tell me there was three questions.
Sorry, Chair. You are, of course, in charge, Mr. Chair. So, and I have some questions of the officers following this, actually. So I just want to make sure the facts are out.
I'll bring you back in. Is it another point of clarification? Well, question, sorry, it's not a question to the officer.
I'm the first speaker, I think. We've done all the points of clarification.
Yeah, but you don't have the whole meeting.
Are you in a position to make any comments on air quality?
No, that is not really my remit.
In that case, I do know that the council have full 100% responsibility around air quality, and I'd just like to question the officers. I know the specialist is not here, but we have a big issue to do with particulars in the air quality management zone. We're already at nitrogen dioxide levels, which we do use diffusion tubes to measure on an ongoing basis, but we're already on the maximum for that, and the EU are pushing for those maximum limits to be passed. We have not measured particulates since 2009 in this Borough Council, and we should be, especially in view of the 2 micron levels which are coming with. I know it's not within the law yet, and as they say, the law is an ass sometimes. And it's the health. The committee here knows very well the points I've been making about these fuel particulates caused by a higher generation, the generation 6 diesel engines, and these are causing really serious problems, and they will become a big problem. Okay, what I'm going to do, Chair, I would like to ask for a site visit in view of the problems around the farm and the changes obviously in the original plan from Bellway 1 and Bellway 2, and also to address the mistake that was made in the minute, so that people are forewarned. And I would like to suggest that we do have a site visit to look at this area. And can I just say, looking at this in the view that I felt, that this is such a serious. You can do that?
Let me explain where I'm going forward. It's been, I'll just give me a minute. It's been moved and seconded a site visit. I already have 2 people listed to speak on the issue in front of us. I intend to take those speakers if they still wish to speak, and then I will take a vote on the site visit. Councillor Navarro.
So I'm willing to see what happens with the vote. If it's okay with you.
Councillor Bond.
Yeah, I just got to want to question the highways officer again. You say that the problems aren't a regular problem, but how often is this traffic monitored? I contacted Highways within the last 12 months because the traffic was backed up from the A5 junction half a mile down the Eastborough Way. It was nearly at the New Century roundabout by the crematorium. And I think it was purely caused by the traffic light sequences. There was no roadworks occurred, there was no broken down vehicles, there was no collisions. Yet so therefore it took us nearly half an hour to get from the crematorium to the A5. I'd been quicker on my bike that day, my bicycle. I just wonder how often it's monitored, because you say it's not causing secondary problems, secondary junctions, I think you called them.
It's the secondary impacts.
Secondary impacts.
Yeah, the county council does monitor traffic flows. The problem I think you're talking about with the signals seems to be a technical issue which the council has had to resolve. It might have been a technical issue with the operation of the traffic lights that way. But that day they do go into error modes from time to time. The county does monitor traffic flows. We've recently completed a series of traffic surveys across the whole of Nuneaton and Bellway to upgrade our strategic transport models. We went out for the first time. Unfortunately, some of the councils were nicked, so we've had to go around again. So we've got quite a lot of data at the moment which we're currently processing and analysing and getting some themes out of that in terms of how traffic flow has changed within the county. That's not my team, that's the strategic transportation team at the county who's doing that work.
Thank you. Councillor.
I'll waive it, Chair. My point was, it's unfair for a member of this committee to take 15 minutes out of meeting time and then throw in a site visit at the end of that when he should have said it at the beginning, because there are points being made here that I would like to address. And now I can't because we've got a site visit we've got to vote on.
Well, we haven't. That was the idea of bringing you in now. If there's any comments while we've got this in front of us.
No, I'll do it afterwards because the site visit's on.
Okay. It's been proposed and seconded a site visit. Could you just, so we're absolutely clear, repeat the reasons for that site visit?
To look at the problems, especially which have been brought forward around the farm issues, which is directly opposite that access sign.
So the effect on the business of the farm?
The effect on the business.
Okay, thank you. Any member wish to speak at this point on that? No? In that case, it's been proposed and seconded a site visit to look at the issues surrounding the business. All those in favour of that? And against? Abstentions, isn't it? So the site visit closed, which brings us back onto the main item in front of us. Is anybody who's not already spoken and wishes to? Councillor Long.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first point out that some of the comments that were made regarding safety, there are issues around the borough where precedent's been set. And it started out on the Bellway and the Barracks estates off Brooks Hill. There's a wide footpath there which just about gets a fire engine down, which was put in at the behest of the council really making a nuisance of themselves. But then you move to the Flowers estate, which is a big estate, up the Murder, with one access road. The reason for all that is the fact that up until some years ago now, any developments over 50 houses had to have two access roads. The government withdrew that, so you ended up with one. Not our fault, nothing we can do about it. Government edict did that, and that's the situation that we find ourselves in. So, the arguments that you made are well made. I've made them myself, but at the end of the day, there's nothing that anybody can do unless government change the rules about how many access roads and how many houses. So, in this respect, there should be a rethink on that policy. Don't think we're going to get it, but at the end of the day, that's what should happen. In terms of the number of developments, applications coming in, again, that's out of our hands. Whether we've got a borough plan or about that, they might tell Toppers that they can't, Toppers Fish and Chip Shop, that they can't sell chips. I mean, we can't stop developers putting applications in, we have to hear them. So the fact that we've got too many developments, maybe, in some people's opinion, then there's nothing we can do about it. We've got the development, they are what they are, we may as well look to it. In terms of this particular item, I'm unsure, to be honest, whether that is a step too far at this point in time with regard to developing that particular area. Again, we're invested, are we not? We're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. If we don't, then it'll certainly go to appeal because this authority loads of money. If we do, people are going to accuse us of all sorts of things about overdeveloping in one area. So I'm on that sort of plane at the moment, whether or not to say yes or to say no. And I'll sit back and listen to what other people have said before I make my decision.
Thank you. Councillor Navarro.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, any development like this, where you get a 25% affordable housing, so it excites me because there's a need for that in the borough. But I'm really concerned that the officer is saying to me that rather than going with what I assumed was the policy adopted by this borough council, certainly what has been advocated by this committee of pepper potting has been preferred, or rather deferred and preferred to have an association sort of bringing together housing. It leaves me a little bit distressed, to say it frankly, because the whole notion of pepper potting housing is to try and have integration and to make people lives even better as relative where they're living rather than putting all social housing in the same place. So I'm just looking for some kind of assurance that, you know, what we've been advocating here for a long time has been happening, because right now I'm concerned whether it has been happening at all. Or whether we say things here, when it goes across, when it's left this part of the discussion, it becomes a different issue outside. And so what we should be seeing, we will probably not see if we visited as we did today and saw things that we have actually planned and given approval of. You know, so please, Chair, if I can have some sort of explanation as to what's happening about that.
Well, I'll let the officer do it, but the application is from the applicant, and I assume that's where they're suggesting the affordable housing gap.
Yeah, I'm quite happy. Yeah, is that okay? As far as we're concerned as officers and also the housing department, we are happy that that is pepper potted around the scheme. Yes, there are certain areas around there, but there are different accesses, they're accessed from different areas. When I said about housing associations wanting them in areas, it's something that we probably would as a housing department ourselves, because of shared accesses and such like. But if you actually look at the larger scheme as a whole, as I say, we're confident and we're happy that they are pepper potted, and the phase 1, including the phase 1 Bellways, that will include other areas around the scheme contributing to a flow across the whole of the 2 phases.
I'm talking about this phase 2, not the phase 1.
We're happy
what's in
with
front of me.
Yeah, we are happy as a department and housing it that they are substantially or sufficiently pepper potted.
You're not trusted.
You're always going to get clusters.
Any other member? Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have some concerns about Don does about clustering and affordable housing in certain areas. Are there the purple blocks on this map?
They are, they're the red or purple as it comes out on the screen.
Yeah, I see them on there. There's about concentration at the bottom, isn't there? I'd also think as well, did you hear about a mixture of detached, semi-detached and terraced, isn't there?
Correct.
I was wondering what the percentage, percentage of the numbers of those who are put through the paperwork. And also a bit, I know you've got a desire to hold massive with the parking, but I do know some developments where, things like Ski Drive development and Bellway and Changery Gallicon, for example, where they're a mixture of kind of semis and first rents. Lots of parking issues on that particular estate. I'm not
We are happy with that. The scheme across it has provided enough houses and has provided enough parking. Most of the houses across the scheme have two parking spaces, which normally go on 1.5. But unfortunately, we haven't got an extant policy that we can use for parking standards.
Oh, sorry, Chair. What do you want the percentage of the numbers were?
Sorry, yes. It's 6 one-bedroom, 16 two-bed, 13 three-bed, tell me if I'm going too quick, 3 4-bed, 2 two-bed bungalows. And it will be, as normally agreed, 75% affordable rent and 25% shared ownership.
I'll let you digest that, Councillor Billy. Yes. To come back. I'll just take another Councillor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Longden's made a very, very good point tonight regarding the change in law that I didn't know about from a highway point of view on the number of houses and only requiring one exit and entrance. Councillor Trowens has made a very, very good point about the dangers of that, and I am very concerned about that. And I'd just like to hear, from my own personal peace of mind when I go home tonight, you know, that only having one access is legitimate and safe for this development.
Yeah, as part of the consultation process, Warwickshire Fire Service and Warwickshire Police are consulted as part of the planning application. And normally what happens if concerns are raised by those authorities in terms of anything to do with the highway network, Warwickshire County Council as the highway authority will review those comments and take a view in terms of what needs to be done. Neither of those authorities have objected to this scheme. Warwickshire Police have provided no objection and Warwickshire Fire Service have provided no objection subject to conditions, and they have seen the access arrangements. Warwickshire County Council is comfortable that the access arrangements will work, and because of the amount of space that the junction is now going to have, there should be a substantial space for emergency services to plan and manage that access arrangement to ensure there is a level of access to that development if it is required in terms of an emergency.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mark.
Yeah, can I question you on that last point? My understanding as an ex-fire officer, requirement for fire, get the phrase right, for the fire appliances to access, it's a width and the weight of the vehicle, the strength of the road, and a turning circle to allow the vehicle to get back out again, having dealt with the problem. I've never commented in the past on access having more than one access. One access or 10 accesses was never a point that we commented on. It was just purely the width of the access, the strength of the road to cope with the 23 tons of fire appliance, and the turning circle to get back out again.
Well, the roads, well, the applicant has proposed a road layout plan, which is those roads that should be provided for adoption. Any road that has to be provided for adoption has to be built to an adoptable standard, so it can take the refuge vehicle and a fire tender vehicle. Any private drive has to be built to an adoptable standard to enable a fire tender to get within 45 metres of the last dwelling in line with manual for streets. The highway authority reviews that, and we also ask if we require it, vehicle tracking drawings for fire tenders, only usually for emergency accesses. In this case, it's been a refuge vehicle because it's a larger vehicle, and it demonstrates it can move in all directions required. So the highway authority is satisfied.
Yeah, I think the point we're trying to make...
Councillor Bonner.
Sorry.
Just have a chat across the chat.
Sorry, Chair. I apologise. Okay, Chair, the point I'm trying to make is we all know that certain things go wrong, they go wrong more than one thing at a time. So this was illustrated earlier. If you have a road traffic incident on the junction at the same time as there's a fire or a public disturbance or whatever, a public order issue, the access is no longer there. So I find it strange that we're allowed to have developments of more than 50 houses with just one access.
The guidance is clear. We can't make a judgment on an application, an access arrangements, development based on those scenarios because we don't know not a sufficient ground on which the highway authority can make a considered decision, and it wouldn't stand up at appeal. It's down to the Emergency Services, and as I said, they both provided no objection to the proposal.
Councillor Hilton, I did say I'd give you the chance to digest that information you had. Did you want to come back on
Yeah,
that?
math isn't my strong point, that's why I teach history. Look at those figures, 6.1 versus 16.2, that equals 40, I worked it out right, and that's just 254 houses. I just wondered, and obviously then I tried to work out which do you just mean the affordable ones, but that would come to 63. I've got that right as well,
Yes.
so I'm not very good at that, so I know I've got something wrong there. And I was also wondering, in terms of the overall percentages, what percentages for the affordable housing? Are they measuring for the terrace ones, or the 2 beds, or?
That is the actual split in terms of the affordable, so
That's the affordable ones, okay. And what's the overall split? You know the overall split?
no, I need to move it.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Okay, cheers.
Is there any member not already spoken that wishes to? We'll be very generous, Councillor Foster. You've had a couple of opportunities already, Mr. Chair. I think it's going to be short and sweet.
It's a question that I already asked, which wasn't answered on the air quality areas.
I've got to say, Councillor Foster, you may not like the answer, but it's been answered. Well, the report says that there's no objections to some positions later on. Am I?
Correct, yeah. We would defer to the written law mental health, and they have no objections on air quality grounds.
I'm aware of that. In that case, I personally, as a retired scientist, am in conflict with our own officers.
Well, Councillor, you need to take that up somewhere else.
I will certainly do.
Or vote accordingly on anything. We have the advice from the officers. Whether we agree with that advice or not is how we'll establish our voting.
Could I just ask that my...
No. The recommendation as printed... The recommendation as printed has been moved and seconded. All those in favour of that? And against?
Chair, I would like to recorded vote of my objection.
It is recorded, it's on film.
Yeah. Facebook tonight. As Councillor kindly called for a copy. Thank you. That's...
Yeah, on Facebook, 10 minutes after the meeting.
Well then, guys.
Please.
Okay, that has been approved in accordance with the recommendation.